Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this week's update on the worm bins. I have two regular tote systems, and for my regular totes, I have chosen to do a style where I don't put any holes in the bottom of the regular totes. I just allow the water and moisture to evaporate from the top. Currently in my bins, I am bringing these to harvest time. So I am not going to add any more shredded cardboard to the bins. And I want to get that fully broken down so when it comes time to sift it, I don't have any large particles. I'm also trying to ensure that the material isn't too muddy either. So I'm going to add large particles of food to all of my bins. It's just a lot easier to chop everything up into the same size pieces, and hopefully that will help out in these bins. But for the next few weeks with the regular totes, I'm not going to be doing much to them beyond just feeding them up, giving them a good size feeding, and making sure that they aren't too wet or too dry. Speaking of which, looking at the castings that are here right now, in the second regular tote, they were very dry on in the area where I did not have the bubble wrap. So in this one, I want to make sure they don't dry out too quickly and too fast because that'll harm the worms that are in these bins. So I should have spread the bubble wrap all across on this one, but I neglected to do so for this week. So hopefully next week it won't be that big of a problem when it comes back to check, whether the system is too wet or not. But in this bin as well, I gave it the large style feeding and then added the worm grit on top to help the worms break down whatever material is in the bin. And my two regular tote bins are now set up for the next week. Hopefully in about 3 weeks, I'll be able to harvest both of the bins. Moving over to my Vermibag tote, which is also a tote style system with the exception of the castings go into this canvas tote that was created. I did get these bags from a content creator on YouTube for Vermibag systems. I enjoy the Vermibag totes. For my area, I find that the totes are a bit of a better system to work with because they run drier rather than wet. And for the summertime in my area, I'm in garden zone 6B, 7A. In the summertime, we get a lot of humidity. So these bags come in handy, whereas the regular totes are super wet. These tend to be just wet enough for the worms to be happy. I would encourage you to try different style totes as each type of bag and each bag creator will provide different environments for your worms that may work better in your area versus another. For me, I prefer these, but again, budget is always important when you're doing worm composting, so whatever works for your budget would be the best thing that you would want to go with. For this bin as well, I did feed the larger pieces of food. Like I said, all the bins I'm going to feed the larger pieces of food, but I'm not really messing with them a lot as those three bins are probably going to go to harvest. This particular bin is not being harvested, and I've mentioned that before because I am taking right now whatever is from the castings from the breeder bin and putting them in here. So I'm just trying to grow this colony, bring it back to life from what happened to it last year. It's been slow going and I've tried different things and I hope that the breeder bin process works out, even though I'm still a novice at figuring out how the whole breeder bin process works. I did harvest my breeder bin last week and that's why I didn't update it this week. It's just the totes and flow through system that I have. But I am going to add cardboard to this bin. And I added dry shredded cardboard instead of anything pre-moistened, as the castings in here, because they are from the breeder bin, they're very silty and they are prone to being muddy. So I didn't want to add any more moisture to this bin. I just wanted the moisture to come from the food, and I wanted the cardboard to soak that up. So I also did give this bin a larger feeding, and again, not really messing with the totes all that much, because I just want them to get going and the worm population to grow in this particular one. So hopefully that works out for me. I don't know how I'm going to test that, but hopefully everything works out. And my last and final system is by Vermibag Mini, which is the only flow through system. And I've been very successful with this bin with keeping the worms at the top. As you can see, there's quite a few worms hanging out in the cardboard from last week. And I've also been successful week over week with keeping the edges pretty moistened versus the dry and crispy. Now again, as you can see, as I move through it, just underneath of this, it was dry in certain areas, but I don't dig through my flow through system like I do with my totes. I don't fluff them as much. So hopefully there's different layers of wet and dry where it's not going to be too muddy, because I tend to have muddy castings when I harvest my Vermibag Mini. So we'll see when it's time to harvest the other ones what happens with the harvest with this. But I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing, which is putting the wetter chunks along the edges of this bin and then adding some food into the middle. Everybody, including this bin, did get a good size feeding for the week, and I put some, like I said, right in the middle and some more cardboard on the top to bring up that level so that the level isn't too low for the castings. Once again, always focusing on adding moisture to my flow through system. If this doesn't work when I look at the castings, if they are too dry this time around, we'll look for some other solutions for that. But that's the weekly update for all 5 of my bins. Thank you so much if you stayed with me to the end of this video. I do appreciate you watching. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Have a good one.